So a few things to kind of just note in terms of the essentials when you are thinking about a personal statement for a master's application. Each university have their own process, and they may even have separate demands on the personal statement elements that you put in as well. Generally speaking, they won't, but it's worthwhile just doing that research and checking that out before you do actually apply. So essentially one overall statement for all. Make sure you check before you start writing that statement. Okay. Again, most will require a personal statement. That is the focal point of your application. So again, any application is more to fill in than that. So applications, for example, at Northumbria, you can click on there, have a look at our application process. So the links are on there for you to have a look at. There is obviously information to put in there about qualifications and previous work experience as well, and other forms will differ. But the personal statement is the main crux. Okay? Okay. So in terms of initial phase, the planning. So even before you start writing it, like you do any basic academic work, what you do is planning it first, doing your research. That helps basically inform what you're going to be putting down. So, a couple of points around this. So, in terms of the planning, it's a statement of academic interests, okay? So, it shouldn't be an autobiographical approach in terms of telling someone everything you've done about your life, about your interests. You don't have to mention everything relevant to the topic of interest you're going forward to. It's making sure that, again, you've researched what you're applying for, and you're using your past experiences to really inform that application. So it's picking out the relevant bits to do that. And again, part of that comes down to mention before, different universities have different processes, could be slightly subtle in the differences, but one thing that will certainly be different is why you're applying to this university. Yeah? So that again comes through, it's thinking about, in your planning, how that differs. So you should be writing a different personal statement for each course you apply to. So this stage of questions here I think are quite key to help you think about what you're applying to. But one of the key elements I always, again, as a starting point to discuss these, is really thinking about why you want to study a master's and why you want to study that particular master's course. And also as well thinking about how your course informs what you're doing moving forward as well. So what you've learned from your undergraduate study, again, is a useful one, but also thinking about you personally as well. So about your personal experience and how that helps inform. That's what makes you different and unique. So your kind of personal work experience, your personal volunteering, you're maybe done some separate courses, for example. These are all things that make you different, unique, and help sell you as a person, make it more personal and honest. So the structure, okay? Now, there are quite a lot of different elements online in terms of tells us how much to write, what to write, that sort of thing. But this is kind of from my experience what I think is more favourable to do. 400 to 500 words, and that with the right size font. So I think I wrote down here standard fonts such as Arial, Calibri, or Times New Roman. I think are preferable. Yeah, nothing fancy or extravagant, just quite the mundane ones. And size 11 or 12 as well. Okay, text size, and that should be roughly 4 to 5 paragraphs across one side of A4. I would expect. All right. So it certainly is quality over quantity. We don't want reams and reams, or I wouldn't advise doing that. Typically speaking, the longer it is, the worse the statement will be. What it needs to be. Part of the challenge is making sure you get it across a nice, concise format. So that's what I'd probably say around that. And the 4 to 5 paragraphs are kind of informed around some of the things we looked at before. And again, the structure will be logical, so it should flow, like an essay might do as well. Yeah, flow from paragraph to paragraph ideally. So it's easy to read and interpret. So this might be a loose interpretation about 4 or 5 paragraphs you're looking to do, and they kind of flow from the planning section quite a bit from that perspective. So thinking about why you want to study, the course you're interested in, that's really important. I guess a really good starting point as well. I think talking about your motivation and talking about your approach to that area of study is a kind of solid introduction and a good starting point. And then through the main body, considering why that university, why that department, which we mentioned that a little bit before. Then how does your course fit your skill set as well, which this is from, again, skill set from not only academic, that is very important, academic, research skills, but also as well some transferable skills you may generate from work as well, or from volunteering, or from extracurricular activities. And that can be informed by what else you can bring as well. So this is where you make it more personable, thinking about your unique, relevant aspects. And then also your career aspirations as well. So again, career aspirations is a good one to finish with as well, like summarise as well, because it kind of is the future, isn't it? It's moving forward. So again, typically this is a good ending point. And most courses want to know why you're doing that course. They want to feel there's a purpose. And this is one of the questions I always ask students when they're thinking about doing a master's course is, well, what's the purpose of doing this? There could be many purposes of doing it. Pure enjoyment of the subject, like in academia, for example, could be some simple ones, but often a career aspiration, how it's going to benefit your career, your motivations in that area, is something that they'll be interested to know about. Again, this can be, I think that the crux of this part, I would say, is thinking about the academic aspects of your programme. So research is a big part of this. A dissertation is just a good example to take it a step further. So many master's courses, I don't know if the master's course you're interested in reflect this, often there's a bigger research project involved in them. So again, not all of them, but a lot of them will have that element to it. And again, typically it's double the size of undergraduate personal study area. So it's being able to talk about that, your abilities in your study. So for example, methodologies are quite useful to give them credibility and authority that you know what methodologies are, what you've used, the research methods. So even just talking about the ideas about quantitative and qualitative research and how why you use those methods and some basic idea of methodology. Talking about more general ones like critical thinking, for example, on your course as well, and how you use that could be useful to help evidence again on the course. So research again, I've written things down like communication as well. Something else useful skill that you develop on your course that again you can use to help provide evidence that you'd be suitable on a master's level course as well. So really thinking about your research knowledge, what you've learned on your course, how the course has helped improve you in those areas, and how that'll transfer into you being a good master's student is really important. So examples, but also the specific skills as well. So again, the placement as well. So you've done a placement on your course. Again, thinking about, is there anything from that actually links into the master's process as well? Your master's application again, transferable skills, experiences that can link forward, demonstrate motivation again. In terms of adding some evidence, I thought a couple of bits to talk about this. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples, some more written examples on here, then we'll look at a personal statement example and have a bit of a work through that and see if we can find any development points in that. So the first thing to mention really is it's just one way of kind of embedding your evidence. There's two main ways of embedding the evidence within your application. So the first thing to just be aware of is that I said a bit before, evidence-based approach when you're adding your personal statements. We're not listing things for the sake of it. We're thinking about what adds an impact and what is selling us for the course above and beyond anybody else. So one way to do it is basically sentence structure, make a claim and back this up with evidence. Yeah. So again, achieved by talking about your work experience, your academic interests. So rather than making a statement, they're asking you to basically provide some reflection on it. Okay? Which is again another way you can help stand out a bit more. If you can tell someone what you've learned from the experience, what you developed from the experience. So this is very important in teaching, for example. But it's another way you can maybe think about selling yourself. One way of doing it, again, I don't know if you've heard of the STAR method before. Sometimes this, on a personal statement, if you're wanting to provide more of a well-rounded or an in-depth example, this is a good structure to put it into as well. And this is what it could look like. I'll let you read through that as well. The different colours represent the 4 different sections. So, task, action, results. So you can just see, first of all, there's more context in terms of what they're actually doing, where they were working, which again is useful for someone trying to assess your credibility in the example as well. Here, which is useful in terms of what they're trying to achieve. Again, this is for teaching, I appreciate that, but again, they're talking about their use and their understanding of the national curriculum, which is obviously really important for that particular personal statement. Here they're then talking about the actions they took, talking about innovation, simplifying tasks as well, so giving more detail what they actually did in that particular example, and they've offered some reflection and again some detail in that as well with the particular students they were working with and what they got praised for.